So, let's talk about one of the most thorny topics that is out there in YouTube, money. Or specifically, how much money is this channel making? Believe it or not, like every time I meet someone and the topic of my YouTube channel it comes into the conversation, 99% of the time this is the first question that they make. You may have noticed that a lot of YouTubers don't like talking about this or can't talk about this, and the reasons for that are complicated. The AdSense conditions from YouTube prohibit people from sharing exact revenue numbers, and sometimes arrangements with sponsors also do the same. It's also just a very uncomfortable topic to talk about. What I can, however, do is talk in general terms, and you can use that information to extrapolate and maybe understand better what happens behind the scenes in some other YouTube channels. Hey, as long as you learn a thing or two about this very mysterious topic, that's okay for me. So, part 1, clarification. So, a question that comes often is, how many subscribers do I need to work full-time in my YouTube channel? Or, how much money is a 100,000 subscriber channel making? These questions are impossible to ask because it varies a lot between channels and people are sort of looking into the wrong variables. So I know channels about my size that are making 3 times what this channel is making, and I have at least heard of channels twice my size that are approximately making half of what I do. So using just subscribers or views to measure this and trying to make a measure of how much a YouTube channel is making is really inaccurate. So once again, I can talk about my personal experience and you can hopefully use that as a basis, but every single channel is going to be very different. Part 2, AdSense revenue. So as most people already know, the most basic way of doing money in YouTube is through the ads that YouTube provides. So if you saw a video ad right before this video, or you see something like this or this, the creator of that video is getting a cut from the revenue from those ads. And before you ask, yes, that means that if you're using AdBlock, the creator gets absolutely nothing. There's a really good video by Professor Puppet that goes into this topic of how approximately calculate how much money the ads on a specific video are making. I highly recommend you watch this video. It must be on a card in the corner. Let me see where the corner is. So the corner should be here? Huh. So there's one thing that I feel that video should have gone more into depth, which is how valuable the ads on a specific channel are, which is calculated using CPM. So Professor Puppet approximates Jenna Marbles' CPM as $10. Now, this is like 4 times what a channel my size will get from a CPM, but it's not unreasonable considering her status as a YouTube celebrity. He then uses 5 to try to approximate more regular channels, which is still a little bit high in my opinion. So how do you find the CPM of a specific channel? You can't, because that information is secret. Only the creator of a channel knows that and he's not supposed to share it. This is why when you use a tool like Social Blade, the approximation of the income a channel is having has a range of error of like 1000, which is insane, because this information is in public and it's very hard to know a precise value behind that. Also, very important to note, the CPM of each block of viewers depends on where those viewers are located, because the ads are sensible to that specific market. So for example, this is how my geographic distribution for this channel looks. And from what I've been talking to other channels, usually the bulk of the viewers of a channels are in one specific country, usually more than 30% and sometimes as high as half. My channel is a bit atypical in that sense, and a lot of the channels where my views are coming from are from places where YouTube has a very weak publicitary presence or simply doesn't even monetize. So those views are never monetized and do not make any money at all, which is important to take into consideration. When we look at how that works on a specific video, for example the Titanfall 2 video, that's a game that costed 60 euros or dollars whenever it came out. When I'm recording this, that video is close to about 47,000 views, which means that it made less than half of the cost of the game, which is interesting when you think about it. Sometimes I'm accused of not making enough content regarding big AAA releases, but when a video goes out and something like this happens, it means that I lost money making the video rather than made it. Yikes! One important lesson for prospect creators out there, always keep your costs in mind. How much are you spending to make a video versus how much you can possibly get back from it, especially if you're making these videos regularly. Which leads perfectly into part 3, Patreon. So, on an ideal world, a channel could be maintained by money donated by their fans, and that way, 1, you get a transparent idea of how much money is being donated to a channel, and 2, and more importantly, the channel has no obligations to external advertisers and only has an obligation to his audience. That's how an ideal world will be. Now, one small note regarding this transparency thing. The number that you see in someone's Patreon profile is not exactly how much money goes into their bank account. You have to take into consideration that 1, Patreon takes a cut, and 2, which I discovered very recently, if someone creates a troll account with a fake credit card number and pledges to channel or to a Patreon account, that number influences the total of it, even though that account is not really donating anything at all. And something that really baffles me is how many troll accounts are they? In any case, when doing strategy for a Patreon campaign, it is really important to consider the audience that is sort of directed towards. So in my case, we are all extremely budget sensitive. We are playing low-end computers because in many cases we are very budget sensitive gamers. Because of that, it's a little bit weird to ask someone to donate for a channel because, as many fans have told me in the past, they wish they could, but they simply can't. This is something that I should have thought before starting a Patreon campaign. So that is another lesson for future prospect creators. Know your audience, know them well, and think about them as you create strategy. Hey, that doesn't mean that I'm not thankful for the people who have donated to me in Patreon, as I have let them know in the little blogs that I make from time to time, and just on the things that I post for them. I am very thankful of anyone who has willing to do the sacrifice to donate to the channel, very much. But that leaves option number 4, sponsors. So sponsors are brands or products that are promoted through a channel in exchange for some remuneration. So that could be something like a sponsor spotlight integrated into a video, and the method of payment depends a lot. Sometimes it's just like one payment for doing something on a video, or in the case of, for example, Humble Bundle, the creator only gets anything if someone buys something like a bundle through a link. Humble Bundle link in description, hashtag promote whatever. In those cases, for example, the creator doesn't get any money by talking about the brand, but only if someone buys something through a link. And working with sponsors is really tricky for 2 reasons. Reason 1, you should never promote something that is either a bad product or something that you find immoral. Of course, what is a bad product or considered immoral depends on the specific values of that YouTuber, and to me, this is something that is extremely important in order to keep a channel honest and sort of real on what they're doing. But I understand when some people have a hard time doing this, because some of the services or things that have offered me the most money to be sponsors are for things that are so ridiculously immoral that I would never consider them. I will let you to ponder what those might be. But it's very interesting how those are often the ones offering the most money. Number 2, the brand is interested to a specific audience. So any brand that is willing to sponsor a video or a YouTube channel has to be interested into the audience of that specific channel, in this case, people who play in low-end computers or care about low-end gaming. So on one hand, you have brands that are interested in your audience. On the other hand, you have brands you're willing to work with for moral reasons or because their products are good. And in the small intersection between them, that's the brands that we can work with. So when I was starting in YouTube, a fellow creator told me that usually brands come to you, and this hasn't really been my experience. In 99% of the times, I have to actively search brands because this is a channel for a very specific niche sort of content, and a niche that is mostly either misunderstood or people don't really even realize it exists. So there's not much opportunity of someone even finding that and sponsoring it. And what is good at being able to find sponsors, something important to note is that when you are the first to initiate a conversation with a brand, that usually puts you into a weak position of negotiation, because if a brand approaches you, you're usually in a better position to negotiate, for example, a better rate. It doesn't really work well when it's backwards. And talking about that, like, how much does a sponsor pay? It depends. Sometimes it's just as little as is needed to buy the game so I can make the video. Sometimes it's enough to buy 2 or 3 games so I can do 2 or 3 more videos, but it's not thousands of dollars as some internet articles would lead you to believe. Of course, this depends. This is my personal experience. I'm pretty sure there are creators who get sponsors for thousands of dollars, but that's natural because it depends on how they fit into the audience that the brand is looking for. And of course, something that I haven't mentioned that is an additional difficulty to work with when working with brands and sponsors is that there's always going to be backlash. There's always going to be people who are unhappy with any brand integration in a video, which is something I can understand up to a point. But it's something that is complicated to deal with because what exactly do you say to them? In some cases, sponsors are needed to even get the money to buy the game to make the video. I believe as long as one sticks to its principles and doesn't promote something one doesn't agree with, but it's still really complicated and it's still not easy to figure out how to do things correctly in a way the audiences recognize as genuine. And that said, hopefully this video has been an interesting insight into some of the economics that happen behind the scenes in YouTube. And I know that there's still significant challenges in maintaining the channel going. I'm very confident that I can find a solution to keep it happening. YouTube has a very steep learning curve, so anyone who is trying this is learning as we go. But I wanted to relay some of my experiences along because it may answer some of the questions that many of you have. Now, if you have any specific questions regarding some behind the scenes or strategy for YouTube or any of these topics that I touched in this video, leave them in comments and I will be delighted to answer them. Also, do you think this kind of videos regarding what is happening behind the scenes in the channel are interesting? Also let me know in comments, because that way I can make more. Thank you for watching all the way until here, and I will see you on the next video.